All right, this is WHAP Chapter 7, Part 1. We're going to talk about this whole new unit. Now we're going into the time period where we have our classical empires, if you will, these great and interesting empires of the classical world. Today we'll be focusing on the mighty empire of the Persians. Three main categories here: the rise and fall of the Persian empires, the imperial society and economy, religions of salvation in classical Persian society. And I hope you see that the titles and topics here will actually help you on your Persian. Persian empires is, without a doubt, political. You're talking about a governmental structure. Society and economy, there are two more. And then, of course, religions of salvation will give you four of your topics right there. We're going to focus exclusively on the Achaemenid, the Seleucid, the Parthians, and the Sassanid empires. They're the four dynasties that ruled the Persian Empire before it eventually fell for good. Okay, just an overview. The Persian Empire arose in the shadow of Mesopotamia, if you will, in what's modern-day Iran. They had been a subject people for years under the Mesopotamians, but for more than a millennium, those four dynasties would actually rule this great empire of Persia, which was, at that time, the largest in history. They began with the Achaemenids under the rule of a man named Cyrus the Great, who, although he had humble origins, he had the nickname Cyrus the Shepherd sometimes. He's this fantastic warrior, a military strategist, and he takes the Persians and makes them something fantastic. Within 20 years, they go from a very small kingdom to this huge empire with borders from India all the way up to the border of Egypt. He most likely would have taken Egypt, but he died fighting in battle. Now, son Cambyses is actually going to come in and finish that up and conquer Egypt. And, of course, the Egyptians couldn't stand the rule of the Persians because Egypt had such a strong cultural identity. Now, while Cyrus the Great was great for many, many reasons, he's fantastic. He really helped the Persian Empire do things right by honoring local gods of the peoples that he subjugated. He was always a very tolerant and forgiving ruler, although he could put his foot on your throat if he needed to. But it was the third ruler of the Achaemenid Empire, Darius, who also would become known as Darius the Great, who was the most powerful of all the Persian emperors. What Darius did a little bit different, although he expanded the empire even further than Cyrus did. He added some lands. What he was known for was his administration powers. Darius went in and they had a decentralized rule where that's such a huge empire, they had some 20 satrapies, ruled by a satrap if you won a province, okay? And these satraps would run the local customs and they would make sure that money was coming into the Persian Empire. Now, Darius was smart. He knew that these people could want power for themselves and that could cause rebellion, so he had spies surrounding them at all times that would report on their actions back to him. Darius also, he standardized tax income. He made the people pay taxes, whereas Cyrus and Cambyses, they accepted tribute, but they didn't force tribute. And Darius knows that such a huge empire needs a nice set of income coming in. He also standardized laws, not saying that he created laws to rule over the empire, but he took existing laws and codified them and made them something that all the people could accept. Now, these Persians were fantastic warriors. A lot of that was because of their ancestry to the Central Asians, who were these fantastic horsemen, who were fantastic archers. So they were militarily very powerful. But there is one place that really gives the Persians fits, or the Achaemenid Empire at least, and that's the Greeks. The Ionian Greeks were in modern-day Turkey, and they could not stand Persian rule. They were bordering the rest of the Greek islands, and the Greek islands were free. And it's a huge cultural difference here between the Greeks and the Persians. And basically they rebel. The Persians come in and smash that rebellion. But the Athenians jump in on the side of their Ionian cousins. And next thing you know, you have this great battle of Marathon where the Persians are actually defeated. Xerxes is the fourth successor. He's the fourth king or emperor of the Persian Empire. And he comes in, and you know him from 300, of course. He comes in and fights the Greeks, but he too is defeated, and his army is sent back. For the next 150 years, there are all these clashes between the Persians and the Greeks. But all that's going to end with a man named Alexander the Great, who conquers the Greeks and then takes a unified Greece, marches into Persia, and just completely annihilates them. Burns Persepolis and ends the Achaemenid Empire. That's it. They're gone. No more. Now, I must add that they had also created something called the Royal Road. It was basically a 1,600-mile interstate, if you will. They had thousands of miles of road networks that allowed for great communication. Movement of troops was very fast. They had a postal service, but none of that's going to be able to stand up to the military power and genius of Alexander and his Greeks with their phalanx formation. Okay, so when Alexander would actually die just a few years after defeating the Persians, and his top 3 generals would fight for control of his empire, and they would break it up into 3 chunks. The chunk that ruled his Persian part was run by a man named Seleucus, and he would found the Seleucid Empire. Seleucids are always seen as foreign conquerors because they're actually Greek. So the native peoples never really liked the rule of the Seleucids. Doesn't mean that they weren't affected, because they were. They adopted the Persian administrative style just like Alexander did. You know, don't mess with a good thing, and the Persians knew how to administrate. Had fantastic administration. Now, the Seleucid Empire, there really no high points to talk about with it. It was ended by the Romans. As the Roman Empire grew and expanded, they would come in and conquer the Seleucid Empire, and it would end. After that, it would be the Parthians that came to power. Parthians had already been a local, regional power during the Seleucid Empire. They ruled basically back in Iran. They were very tough. They were native Persians, if you will. And so they would take over after the Romans basically do their dirty work for them and end the Seleucid Empire. Their empire lasted 300 years, so basically as long as America's been around. But due to Roman pressure, the Romans didn't defeat the Parthians, but they did cause pressure and cause havoc. That, coupled with internal rebellion, brought the Parthian Empire down. In the last of these, the Sassanids actually claimed descent from the Achaemenids. They toppled the Parthians in 224 BCE, and they did have one emperor named Shapur I, who created a series of buffer states between the Sassanids and the Romans that kind of absorbed some of the problems. They fought often with the Byzantines, but eventually they're going to fall once Muhammad and the Islamic movement comes into this region.